Hey guys, it's Shelby and welcome back to another episode of Professor Shelby. Whenever I wheel in the little cart with my laptop on it, you know things are getting serious. So for today's video, I've seen a trend going around of people ranking various different things, right? People who talk about makeup, they rank makeup, skincare, fast food restaurants, all that sort of stuff. And basically, I thought I should hop on the trend and help rank sustainable brands. So over on Instagram, I asked what brands you'd want me to look into, to review for you, to kind of dig into. And today I'm going to talk about some of those, but we all know that I talk way too much. So if there are more brands that you want to see me do this with, leave them in the comments. Also, if there is a brand you really want to know about and you think I just skipped over them, it might be because I've talked about them in a previous video, or like I have a whole other section of a video where I talked about them. So I'm going to leave my playlist below where I talk about sustainable brands, kind of review them, give my thoughts and all that kind of thing. So check that out if there is something, or if you want to see, just more videos in general. And without further ado, we'll get into either ripping into these sustainable brands or praising them for the things that they do right after I give a huge thank you to Squarespace for partnering with me on this video. Squarespace has been really great to me over the years. So if you guys ever need to build a website, online store, or even if you just need a domain, there's a link at the top of the description to give you a little discount. All right, let's get into it. So for the tiers list, here's what I did. I made 5 different tiers, and they are God tier, which is like the best, one of the best in their niche, the best of the best. Then we have almost perfect. So maybe if they're doing everything right, but their size inclusivity is not good, so I would never personally even be able to test out whatever they're making, then they get almost perfect. That's where I see those things going. Mostly good is something that I would still purchase, but I think that they could be doing better, or there are other brands that I know of that are doing better. Then we have not good, which is like I personally wouldn't buy from them. Not that they're like just completely unsustainable, just that I personally would choose not to support them. And lastly is awful. No one should buy. I wouldn't recommend anyone purchasing from them because they're just not a good brand. And since I asked specifically for you guys to submit sustainable brands, I don't know that anybody necessarily falls into that category, but we'll get into it. Okay, so you can see all of the brands that I took from my Instagram, which by the way, if you're not following me over there, go do that. But I took the most popular answers and I put them all here. We'll see how many I can get through today. But first up is everlane. This was definitely the most requested brand you wanted to see, so I figured let's give it to you straight up. I've personally purchased a few things from everlane in the past and have been less than ecstatic about those purchases. I tested some of those items in the video, so I'll have that particular video linked here and in the playlist that I mentioned earlier. I will say everlane's quality, if you're moving from, say, fast fashion, is quite a bit above that, right? This is not like a super low quality brand. But once you start getting more into sustainable fashion, if you will, some brands I think of off the top of my head that are pretty high quality, like Eileen Fisher, it's not on the level with that, right? And everlane's whole thing is that they are radically transparent. And I think that they think that their customer base, the customer that they're looking for, is someone who is recently switching from fast fashion and looking to live a more sustainable or ethical life. And in that case, I think everlane fills that gap. But I honestly think their whole scheme of radical transparency is just overstated, to say the least. They're not very size inclusive, so honestly the things that I own from everlane were like the only 2 things on the site that would fit me when I purchased from them. And if you didn't see one of my recent videos where I basically ranted about the lack of size inclusivity in the sustainability space, I'll link that video right up here for you. I cannot stress that enough.
We are the average size American woman.
I'm not asking for something that's like outlandish and crazy. I'm literally, like I said, the size of the average American woman. And so therefore, if you exclude the majority just because we're not what is shown in the media, then I think that's kind of fucked up.
What's not clicking? What's not clicking?
They do use some sustainable fabrics, some recycled fabrics and all that kind of thing, but they also use some things that are not so sustainable. Like a lot of their materials are not organic cotton, it's just regular cotton, which is interesting because I feel like organic cotton is a staple of sustainable fashion, and everlane doesn't use it. If you do some digging into Everlane's radical transparency, they don't tell you much about their factories at all. They don't tell you about their wages, they don't tell you about their conditions, they don't have any certifications to prove that they're doing some great thing for their workers. Mostly when you go to their radically transparent page, it's just pictures that they took of their employees and their warehouses, which are very easily set up or looking pristine in the time that those photos were taken. We will see from some other brands today that are actually transparent in how they treat their workers and their supply chain and all that kind of stuff. So Everlane for me is not radically transparent, not what I would label them whatsoever. There have also been some allegations that have come out against them. They've been union busting, which is an incredibly not ethical thing to be doing inherently for your workers. And there are also statements from employees that they have a very racist and toxic work environment. And I hesitate to kind of like blanket statement an entire business with something that maybe one manager had done or etc. But there are multiple instances in this case of people reporting that. Honestly, just for everything we've talked about today, Everlane is not a brand that I have chosen to support after I purchased those items for the video that I made. So for Everlane, they are getting a not good from me because of the things that they've done, because of how they seemingly tried to manipulate the market into thinking that they are radically transparent when they're actually not. And also my friend Erin from My Green Closet here on YouTube has a great blog post with alternatives to Everlane where she goes and finds like Everlane's most popular items and matches them to an actual much more sustainable and transparent brand. So I'll have that linked below. Next up, you guys wanted to know about Girlfriend, and if you've been watching my videos, I think that you know how I feel, but since so many people requested it, maybe I just don't talk about them enough. I think Girlfriend belongs in the God tier, so we're just gonna go ahead and put them there and leave it at that. I'm just kidding. So they make all of their materials from recycled materials. Their leggings are made from recycled plastic bottles. For me personally, the way activewear is like meant to work on your body to wick sweat away while also being mobile, all that sort of thing, I do think synthetic fibers are best for those activities. And I think if we have to use synthetic fibers in that sense, it needs to be made of something recycled. So I think it's really cool to turn waste into something that's actually usable. But above that, Girlfriend's quality is top freaking notch. Like, it is made of a recycled material, but I've been wearing my pairs of Girlfriend leggings, a couple of them, like almost every day for 2 years, and I have no issues with them. They're literally the most amazing leggings I have ever worn. Obviously, when we talk about synthetic fibers, there is the issue of microplastic. Actually, Girlfriend Collective created their own microfiber filter to answer this problem, which I think is just like taking it to the next step. And so they get a good pat on the back from me for doing something like that. I think it's amazing. And the filter's only $45, so it's really affordable. They also get a huge like knock up to the next level for me because they are incredibly size inclusive. Going from extra, extra small up to 6X is like encompassing of almost everyone. They also use an incredibly diverse range of models on their site, not just in their size, shape, and color, but also in their abilities, in their ages. You see all sorts of different people on their site, and so far, that is the only site I've ever seen to do all of that. Also, from what I'm aware and the information I've been able to find, you do have to package like nearly every article of clothing that you ship out in some form of bag. And in the United States, a lot of times that is a clear plastic bag. And so Girlfriend Collective's garment bags are reusable bags, which I think is an amazing option. So they get another huge thumbs up from me on that. And when we talk about radical transparency, Girlfriend Collective comes much farther than Everlane because they do have the certifications to back up what they say. They use ethical manufacturing and they have an SA8000 certified factory, and they actually post all of their certifications on their site so that you can actually see their documents. They get God tier for me. If you've been watching me for a while, you probably know that. If you're looking for activewear, that is the no-brainer place to go. Next up, so many of you wanted to know about Ethique, which is a skincare brand. They also do shampoo bars, and they've actually started stepping into home cleaning, which is very exciting because I think that they are a really great brand. Their whole brand is plastic free, which obviously helps the environment in and of itself. They're also carbon neutral, and then their give back program is really great because they plant a tree for each purchase, plus 20% of their profits go to causes that you and I would care about. I really love when brands provide a ton of stats. So they do a lot of tracking and inventory and keep track of their actual footprint, which Ethique does, and then they publish it on their site, which gives them a huge like pat on the back, thumbs up from me. And they have a variety of options for a bunch of different hair types. It's not just one shampoo bar. I think almost anyone could go there and find something that would work for them. They're also palm oil free, cruelty free, and vegan. So all of that was just kind of stuff I knew about Ethique off the top of my head. And so I was just going to rank them at almost perfect because they didn't do anything that I was aware of that kind of like pushed them over the line into God tier until I went and did a little digging to be sure there wasn't something that could do that for them, and I found this. They actually do something called direct trading, which is a really amazing thing to do for supply chain transparency. From where the materials are extracted, mined, grown, etc. You want to track that where it's processed or manufactured or all those sort of things up until it gets to the consumer. You want to track every step to ensure that everyone is paid fairly at each step and that everything is handled sustainably at those steps. What Ethique does is go straight to the supplier in many cases, which takes out all of the middlemen and all of the questionability of being ethical and sustainable throughout their supply chains. So taking that extra step there to be more transparent really put them into the next level for me. So we're going to go ahead and add Ethique to the God tier as well. Next up, we have Pact, which a lot of you guys asked about. So they are a sustainable clothing brand that actually has quite a bit of transparency as well, as we're gonna see. I spoke recently in my video about best sustainable zero waste swaps for 2021 about my Pact bodysuit, which I absolutely love. I don't even remember how I stumbled upon this bodysuit, but I bought it and I've fallen in love with it and I want it in every color. So I am able to wear some things from them, but they only, even in that bodysuit, go up to a size XX, which is really great for me because it's the size I wear, but anybody who is a size up from me wouldn't be able to wear it. So right off the bat, they kind of get a little knock from me for not being very size inclusive. Not all of their pieces even go up to a XX, so that kind of sucks. Their pricing is pretty good, which is really good. I know so many people are always asking for affordable, sustainable brands. It's kind of complicated because what's affordable to everyone is different, but I think compared to things like fast fashion, Pact is not up there with like the Reformations of the world, so a little more affordable there. And when I said that they are an ethical company, they are fair trade certified, which is amazing, really, really great for the supply chain because the fair trade and B Corp, both of those certifications take a lot of transparency to get, so you can ensure that if a brand has that, they're doing pretty good. Something I noticed that also gave them a little bit of a knockdown for me is that they have this bring back program where you can send them not just your clothes from the brand, but also from other brands, your clothes in general, but it requests gently used clothing. And so that makes me wonder what happens to the clothes that are not gently used or cannot be donated. There was no answer to that. If they recycle the clothing, if it gets thrown away, all that sort of stuff. So not taking that extra step kind of gave me like a, not really, you're not God tier material. Kind of that kind of thing. Let's see, what do we have? Pact I would probably put mostly good. So based on all the things I just said. Next up, so many of you want to know about Organic Basics, which is a brand that I've known about for a very long time. They used to make like one bra and one pair of underwear when I found out about them, and I still thought that they were a really cool brand back then, but they've expanded a lot and they have been using a lot of sustainable materials, recycled materials. Most of their materials are vegan materials, which is also good, but they use some recycled wool, which I think is really awesome. But the thing is I've never been able to purchase from them because they're not very size inclusive, unfortunately. But if you remember earlier on in the video when I said that Everlane claimed to be radically transparent and they really, really weren't, and we were gonna see some brands that are, Organic Basics I think has one of the most transparent supply chains I have seen, not just in that they have certifications, but that they've broken down how they pay their workers and how they treat their workers in each of their facilities. They tell you where they are, they tell you how many vacation days they get, their wages are included on there. There's a lot of information on how they treat their workers, which is incredibly transparent. And if you're a brand who's doing all of the things right, like Organic Basics is, you would want to show it off. So I always feel like when brands don't take this extra step, it's either out of laziness, they assume the consumer doesn't care and won't look into it, or they're not being as truthful as they claim to be. And what's really cool about Organic Basics is they really are taking the extra step to do everything sustainably. So down to their website, they have a whole page explaining how even their website is a low impact website because the internet itself has a pretty big carbon footprint. And so since they are mostly an online retailer, taking that extra step to make sure your site is running eco-friendly is very cool. Organic Basics is one of the only brands that I was able to find their impact statement, or sorry, their impact report. I'm a data nerd. You guys know I went to school for environmental science, so I nerd out about data like this, and they provide all that stuff right there for their consumers to see. So Organic Basics, honestly, like I want to put them in the God tier because they're so good, but they're not very size inclusive, so they have to go in almost perfect. Next up is Loop. So Loop is a brand, if you guys don't know, that was started by TerraCycle. So that's really good. I think it's a really cool initiative because basically what they wanted to do is make the most purchased items at the grocery store in reusable containers. So here's the thing. The brands that they're working with, not sustainable, not ethical brands whatsoever. Most of these brands that Loop is carrying are owned by really big brands that have a long history of doing detrimental things to the environment in the background, right? So whenever you purchase something that's packaged in plastic, that's only one teeny tiny part of the damage that they're doing to the environment when it comes to destruction of wetlands or mountaintop mining or just exploiting local populations, all sorts of things these brands have been accused of doing. So it does not make them sustainable or ethical in any way. That's what makes it really hard to rank Loop because these items are still the most purchased items, okay? If our bet is to get people to switch from their laundry detergent that they think is great onto one that they think doesn't work so well, do we have a better chance of that? Or do we have a better chance of convincing them to use the same thing but in a reusable container? That's the real question here. Because they don't only carry these big giant conglomerate brands, they also sell small brands. So Plain is partnered with them. I think the brand, which is basically just the coordination and the brand who got these companies to actually get on board with reusable packaging, that's what Loop is doing. I think Loop themselves is a really great brand, and since it was started by the man who owns TerraCycle, I also think that TerraCycle is great, obviously. They are a much needed thing in the market for sustainability. So since I wouldn't not purchase from Loop, I think we're going to have to put Loop in mostly good, I'd still purchase. Because do I support all the brands that they are partnered with? No. But do I think the Loop system is really, really cool? Yes. So there's that. Got a lot of requests to talk about Allbirds, which is a wonderful company. I'll just tell you right now, I think they're wonderful. They are the shoes that I choose to use when I'm working out or anytime I need a sneaker. Is that what you call that? I don't think they're technically called sneakers. I guess like a tennis shoe. Allbirds is a B certified corporation. They use all sustainable materials in their shoes and they're all really interesting and innovative. Some of their shoes are made from trees. So eucalyptus fiber is one of the things that they use in most of their shoes. Their laces are made from recycled plastic, down to the little eyelets that they put on their shoes is made from waste from a microorganism and is compostable. Obviously they're size inclusive because they're shoes. So what was going to push them over into God tier for me? Well, this is the first brand that made this distinction, and so it pushed them kind of over that threshold for me personally. A lot of brands are now starting to offset their carbon emissions, and there's been a lot of pushback on that because offsetting alone is not enough. It's simply not. We need to be focusing on finding the problem of our emissions and then reducing them, obviously, and then the last step should be to offset. Well, Allbirds is the first brand I saw that said that that is what they're doing. So they have a whole page on their site, and it's basically called Measure, Reduce, Offset. So to stay on track of what you are using, to figure out where it is where you can improve, to reduce where you can on your entire footprint, and to offset the rest. That is what Allbirds is doing, and I think that that is, if every brand was doing that, would literally solve so many of the world's issues. We can all assume, and now we know, that we will move Allbirds up to the God tier because that is what they are. Next up, I was really interested that so many of you asked about Patagonia because I've just always thought of Patagonia as a really, really good brand. They use incredible materials. They use a bunch of recycled materials. They have a wonderfully transparent supply chain. They even go as far as to worry about how their materials are grown, right? So you can have a sustainable material like organic cotton, but they go even a step further into supporting regenerative agriculture, which actually could play a huge role in helping climate change. Regenerative agriculture is not only really great for the soils, but also really great for climate change. And so Patagonia kind of takes that extra step, which is really important when we talk about sustainability. Some pinpoints for me for Patagonia is that they are fair trade certified. They use recycled materials. All of their down is completely traceable. They have a bring back recycling program for their materials. And they also have a repair system, which is really important when we talk about sustainability. So the only reason they're not going to God tier for me is because of their lack of size inclusivity. I only own one thing from Patagonia because of this, and that item is a man's jacket. And I've had it for 5 years. It's incredible quality. So we will put them in almost perfect. I understand why so many people asked about this next one because it is an incredibly accessible brand. But personally for me, a brand that's owned by Unilever gives me a lot of pause. And that's mostly due to the fact that there are just so many other brands out there who are sustainable and ethical and small and owned by people who are much more in need of your dollar than Seventh Generation and Unilever are. There are a lot of videos out there about how detrimental Unilever is to the environment, all of the different human rights issues that they have had, so many different exploitations of the environment that they have done. And so I just feel like if I can avoid supporting Unilever, that's what I would choose to do. So I did a little bit more digging because I wanted to give all of these brands their fair chance and found out that Seventh Generation is actually themselves a B certified corporation. Getting a B certification basically means that they analyze a lot of parts of your business and dig deep into your supply chain and how you manufacture, how you pay people, all that sort of stuff. You can look on the B certified website to find all of the information. That's really good. That definitely opened my eyes to Seventh Generation not being like this awful company that's just owned by Unilever. But I will also say that all of Seventh Generation stuff comes packaged in virgin plastic, and also they have like this weird mixed material for one of their laundry detergents that's paper mixed with plastic, so then it can't even be recycled. It's a weird situation, but their packaging definitely gives me like a
I don't really like that.
And then their rankings with their ingredients from several different websites is just awful. They use a lot of fragrance in a lot of the things they make, so why would you choose them when there are so many better options? I don't know. Is that just me? The way I set up the tiers is like I wouldn't buy from them. That's where I'm gonna put it because I personally would not buy from Seventh Generation just with all of the other options out there, like I said. And I'd love to hear your opinion on them as well. And speaking of cleaning brands that are better than Seventh Generation, so many of you wanted to hear about Blue Land. And I reviewed Blue Land before, so I'll link that video up here if you want to check it out, but it'll also be in that playlist that I talked about below. Blue Land is a great company. And when I first looked into them, I thought, all of these brands are coming out with these refill packs, right? It was like a plastic bottle, but they send out refills, but their refill packaging is not even recyclable or compostable. Like, this is kind of weird. And then I found out that Blue Land's actual packaging, the aluminum is so thin that it can be composted. But also what I learned while digging into them a little bit deeper is that they have a platinum material health certification from Cradle to Cradle products. Not many brands go to this length to get the Cradle to Cradle certification because it is intense. If you haven't read the book, it's a really, really good one. I had to read it back in college, and it basically also helps understand supply chain and why there are issues at each step. And if you are Cradle to Cradle certified, that's a pretty big deal. And then there's also the fact that they are carbon neutral, but they don't just say,
hey, we're carbon neutral and like, that's great, bye.
They also have a whole page on their website about what carbon neutrality means and where else they're trying to lower their footprint instead of just throwing offsets at the problem, which, like I said earlier, is not a solution on its own. It's just kind of like a supplement to it, you know what I mean? You can dig deep into their ingredients. They have each of their ingredients listed, and then they'll go over to their pages that they had to like submit for certifications, and it breaks down all the science, all the information about biodegradability. It's kind of weird because they don't have this all on a really easily accessible page. It's not just like on their about page. I had to kind of dig through their FAQs to find this. But if you dig, Blue Land publishes all the information you could ever need to assure yourself that this is a sustainable brand worth giving your money to. That's personally how I feel about Blueland, and so they are gonna go into the God tier for me. See, we didn't have any awful brands, none that I think that you should just absolutely avoid. Well, this video is getting long as per usual when I talk, so those are the brands I wanted to cover today. Like I said, if there are other brands you want to hear me talk about, review, dig into for you, basically be your guinea pig and do the research, let me know in the comments, just leave it down there. And also make sure, like I said, you're following me on Instagram, because I'll probably do another question box the next time if I do decide to do another one of these videos. And also a huge thank you to Squarespace for partnering with me on this video. They help make videos like this possible. So let's talk a little bit more about them. Like I said, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform, so you can look to them to build an online store, website, or even just if you need to purchase a domain. Squarespace makes setting up a website super easy because you don't need to learn coding. They already have some beautiful templates over there that you can customize to be exactly what you're looking for. Squarespace makes it easy to connect your social media and to also take advantage of their blogging tools. You can do email campaigns through Squarespace because it is an all-in-one platform, like I mentioned. With their 24-hour customer service and traffic insight tools, it makes it the easiest way to build a website on the internet today. So when you're ready to launch, head over to squarespace.com/Shelbizleee for 10% off of your first purchase.